If I ask you to think of a very strong childhood memory, what comes up? Can you think of the emotion that was tied to these memories that you've had during your childhood? Because if you can, and whether they're good or they're bad, I think you can really tap into what it takes to be a really good photographer. Let's get into it. Hey everyone, welcome back. My name is Sergio and I'm a commercial photographer here in Victoria, BC. And I have always had this issue with thinking that other people can read my mind. I always thought that everyone was the same as me. Everyone who was thinking thoughts had the same thoughts that I was currently thinking of. Maybe not identical. I'm not saying it was a rational thought. I was 10. But I'm just saying that growing up, I've always felt like my experiences, my stories, my whatever it is that I was living through.
Somebody down there?
Didn't. Yeah. Yes. Hi. Thank you.
Somebody down there?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Morning.
Oh, hey man.
How's it going? It's just me. Shared space. You knew what I knew, and there was no need for me to share what it is that I knew. And maybe that's having an older brother, or maybe that's having bullies or people that are putting you down when you're growing up, and maybe that's an issue as well. But you have a worthy story to share, and your viewpoint on the world is going to be different than everyone else's around you, even your twin brother. Cherish what it is that you do see and what it is that you do have as an experience, and tapping into that and finding a way to share that uniquely from your point of view, from your perspective, is what's going to unlock your photography potential. There is no blueprint, there's no rule book, there's no like, if you take this technical photo, then you're going to be the most renowned photographer in the world. But there are things that as photographers we've all learned to tap into, and I think one of those things is our childhood and our experiences growing up as human beings. I mean, childhood is maybe a loose term. It could be things you learned 6 months ago, but I think in general we tend to tie strong emotions to things that happen in our 10 to 16 years old, or 10 to 19, or whatever, like our teen years. They tend to be very formidable in our upbringing. And just thinking of whatever it is that has a strong emotion and trying to shoot around that is what's going to make you a very original photographer. How to create original work? Just think of yourself, think of your life, think of your experiences, your stories, because nobody else has them. Nobody else has your point of view, your viewpoint on all of these things. You're never going to be some kind of copycat or another version of someone else when you're tapping into your specific experiences. I know we're always told to create original work and to make things that are unique to ourselves. And in this world of millions and millions and millions of photos, and everyone's got a camera, and you're like, how is there anything original anymore? How do you, even thinking of music, how do you think of an original chord progression when everything's already been written? But if you tap into who you are as a person, what created you, what formed you, what molded you over 10 years, over 15, 20, 40, 50 years, now you can really form something that is unique to you. Sure, there's a technical ability to being a photographer, and in order to think of something and then to create it, to make it look like what you're thinking of, there's a gap that needs to be bridged. I get that, and that's kind of difficult to do, but you'll never get into that. You'll never tap into that way of thinking if you're not reflecting on your life, your stories, your experiences, your upbringing. I think that's one of the best ways to create original work, is by just looking inside you and looking at what it is that made you who you are. This is kind of an extreme, but if you've ever heard of the photographer Joel Peter Witkin, he is the king of the macabre, I would call him, because he's just like, there's everything that he's ever shot, seemingly, is about the human body, let's put it that way, in very unique ways that you've never really conjured images could be like it's quite a statement every time that he has shared images over his 40, 50 plus year career. As a photographer, he credits a lot of his gruesome, gross to some people style to a childhood incident that happened to him, where I think he was outside playing with his friends, and there was a car crash that happened, and some lady's head rolled up to his feet, and he was just staring at like someone's head. Decapitated, of course. So, if you haven't had something traumatic like that happen to you, don't worry. You can still make it as a photographer. You might not be the king of the macabre, but you'll still be able to tap into something that's unique to you, I promise you. So, I think one of the things that helps me, let's say, as a photographer, one of the viewpoints that I use, I could use a million different examples. You know what? I can even go back to being a kid. My brother and I, when my parents would go to the mall, my brother and I would stick onto like just the chairs or on the benches that were in the mall, and we would people watch. And my brother would make me laugh about certain things, like, oh, look at this person, blah 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 blah, make up some story. And I remember laughing harder than I had ever laughed, and I feel like I tap into a little bit of that when I do my street photography. And when the angles and the way that I like to shoot is very reminiscent of people watching in the mall in Winnipeg with my brother. Like, it's not necessarily what's creating my point of view that's absolutely unique from someone else's, but I do think of that when I'm shooting. I do think of what made me start shooting, what made me enjoy people watching in general. And it goes back to these memories that I had with my brother. I can think of, just every single vacation that we would go on. My mom would always have a little digital camera or a little point and shoot camera or some kind of, it was film. It was always film because we would shoot, she would make these scrapbooks of our vacations and just our family time together. And to me, it was always like, oh my goodness, you can immortalize a moment. You can freeze time with a camera. And sure, maybe that's basic at this point in our careers, but that feeling, just that idea of capturing a single fleeting moment that isn't going to happen again, or that you can create a moment for 1/125th of a second, and thinking of your photography as these bursts of moments that you can create and immortalize and freeze. That's cool. That's really cool too, and that could be your angle as well. It doesn't need to be some crazy, like, I saw someone decapitated and now all of my images are going to be people that are decapitated. Like, you can find something that is unique to you, and I think that's what really makes us great photographers, is when we can create original work that stems from who we are as people. Your story might not be the most exciting thing in the world, but your story is what we don't have in this world. And I think it's important to share that much more than it is, oh, look at this perfectly technical representation of an image that is, really, really good. Or like, you know what I mean? Like, you don't need to recreate something that's incredible to show how incredible you are. You need to shoot something that doesn't exist in your own way, and that's how you can show how incredible you are. Are you going to get every single client after you create this body of work that's original to you? Maybe not, but you'll be much more proud of your work. You'll be able to look back at your images and be like, oh my God, that looks like me. And that's a cool feeling. That's a really crazy feeling, to look back at a portfolio and be like, oh, that's me. And that's something that I didn't have for a decade, for real. Like, I didn't understand. Like, I don't even, to a certain degree, I didn't even know what I liked. I was told what was good, and I had an idea of what I like more than others, maybe, but I was mostly just forming opinions based around what others were telling me. And it's not until I was able to create a completely original body of work that I was like, oh, that's what this means. That's what it means to find yourself in your photos. That's what it means to look at your images and be like, oh, that's me. And that's a really cool feeling that I hope you all end up getting at some point in your career. Happy Thursday, guys. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you haven't. Leave a like if you haven't. And I'll see you guys in a couple days. Later.